Hi, I'm Joe Veillette. This is a recent development out of our shop called the Merlin. It's an offshoot of the Griffin guitar, which we've sold quite a few of. Just taking the high-tuned Unison 12 a step further, because people were very close to being able to get away doing a mandolin session with the Griffin, but it just was a little too guitar-like. So one more step. I originally thought it would be something for like a Griffin for dummies, for people who didn't want to deal with the D to D rethinking of what you're going to play. But it turns out that, like some really accomplished musicians, very busy session guys are using it just because it's easier to work around than a mandolin for someone who knows how to play mandolin pretty well and guitar very well.
What's the tuning on this? For people
This is E-A-D-G-B-E. Good old guitar tuning, but it's a full octave high.
Full octave higher.
So it's very easy to manage. You can, if you want to keep it simple, you can just sit down with another guitar player and watch each other's hands. And it's turning out to be far more popular than I had guessed it would be.
What's this one made from?
This is mahogany neck with a myrtle body. Sitka spruce neck, Sitka spruce body, top. We're doing some with Adirondack, but Sitka seems to really work the best for these very small guitars.
What is it about that's working well for them?
It just seems to have a slightly rounder sound, and you know, it would be easy to get something this small to sound kind of strident and not smooth, but then this just sounds very musical. And it becomes also a very nice little guitar to just sling around your back and walk around and play in the car, because if you feel like playing stuff that you're used to, you're back in the same old key with the instrument just popped up an octave.
And it seems like it has electronics as well?
Yes, this has a D-tar system, volume and tone in here, and two little wheels. The preamp is attached to the jack, and it's got an 18-volt system with a dummy-free battery box that you can't put the battery in the wrong way. Of course, the 18 volts makes it last years, so you might forget you had batteries.
And it also seems like you like to use 0 frets.
Yes, it's been a trademark of our company for years. In my experience, they're simply better. They you don't have to worry about cutting the nut slot exactly right, because there, in a way, is no exactly right, because it depends on what kind of strings you're putting on it next, or if it wears out a little bit, or even the action. Sometimes changing the action can sometimes make a very carefully cut nut either too high or too low, and you don't want either thing. If the nut's too high, then you're getting sharp notes here. If it's cut too low, you're getting a buzz, and the 0 fret just takes care of it. There's a lot of prejudice against the 0 fret. They used to be on old Framus guitars, which were inexpensive, and I have a couple of customers that just don't want the 0 fret because it says cheap to them. But it's really better.
Do you feel that it evens out the difference between an open string without a 0 fret and a?
Of course, it makes it all more even and more consistent from string gauge to string gauge. The nut is merely a gate to keep the strings in the right place. So it's, there's really no way in which it's not better, except that some people I just don't think they don't like the way it looks. And there's a lot of great guitars out there that don't have 0 frets. It's just because it's cheaper to make that way, easier to make, doesn't mean it's not better. It just happens to save setup time, and which also means changing strings. You're not, you go to a slightly different gauge, you're either going to have a nut that's a little too high or a little too low, and you just live with it because you figure it's okay. but you don't want to cut a nut slot deeper and then go back to some lighter strings and you have to get a new nut. And this is another very recent development called the Flyer. Believe it or not, Veillette guitars is selling and getting press on a 6-string standard tune guitar. It's almost unheard of. I've done 5 or 6 NAMM shows in a row without a single standard tune 6-string guitar. Anyway, the concept is ladder braced like an old Stella or a K. Wanted to capture that kind of bluesy, sort of rude, sort of not heavy sustained sound, a little more bark, and the problem with the old ladder brace guitar was that they tended to self-destruct because there was no longitudinal rigidity. It was just pieces of wood across, just like a back. And my idea to try to get around that was to put a radius on the top. And it seems to be working really well. I brought the first one to NAMM 2.5 years ago, and I could have sold it probably 7 or 8 times over. And I was kind of amazed at the response. And sometimes experiments just work out. And I think this is one of them. The radius top just seems to add a lot of, it gives it just a drop of sweetness that the other ones didn't have, but it sounds nothing like a traditional X-based guitar. And you know, the side benefit is that it's just very comfortable to play. A review there was in Acoustic Guitar magazine last month by Adam Levy. It was a great review, but he said this was as comfortable an acoustic guitar as he's ever held, and it's just very friendly. The cutaway, the radius top makes it kind of nestle into your hands, and it's something you just want to pick up, you know, when you just sit around.
And the sides seem to have different depths.
Well, that's what happens with the radius top, which we had to sort out how we were going to put the upper kerfing in.
And can you talk about your neck joint a little bit? Because it is different than the standard sort of acoustic guitar neck
The neck joint, which is typical of all the instruments we make, is based on a T-nut, a nice big T-nut, which has more resistance than an insert, in the neck, underneath the truss rod. There's a 1/4-20 bolt it's kind of hidden by the strap button. So if you take a Phillips head screw and you take out the screw, which is a machine screw, it reveals a hex fitting that looks just like this. And so with a simple hex tool, same one you would use for the truss rod and for this, you can unbolt the neck very quickly.
What's the other one for?
This holds the tailpiece in place. And the tailpiece design seems to have worked out very well. It's a very, very easy system for changing strings. Just plop it in and pull it.
And can you tell us about the woods you used for this?
This is basically what we've been doing for years, just because we like the sound of the woods. It's Sitka spruce, Honduras mahogany, back and sides, and neck. And basically, a simple guitar. No frills, no decoration. It's the essential guitar. And the fingerboard, bridge, and tailpiece are all Palfaro on this piece. We're really happy with them. They've been doing very well. Thanks in part to the lovely review we got in Acoustic Guitar magazine, of course.